as a white man, I don't expect you to be able to understand what people of color are actually saying. And I don't think I'm going to enact the labor of having to explain to you why that's incredibly offensive and patronizing.
Good point. As a white man, you're not allowed to have any beliefs.
Welcome one and all to the 6th episode of Tumblrisms. Today we're going to be taking a look at cultural appropriation. It's a term that's been making the rounds on the internet. Tumblr in specific. Now, maybe you don't know what that means. It's probably because you're white. You silly little white pigoos just can't seem to get it through your head. And you are the source of misery in this world for all minorities. Hopefully this episode's going to help to clear that up, so you'll understand why you're so fucking horrible. But before we get into the tumblers themselves, it's important that you have an idea of just what cultural appropriation is. You really need the right mindset. You need to be able to empathize with all those oppressed snowflakes, because empathy is important. They need your sympathy. You need to signal boost their suffering. And so to do that, I've made this informational comic, because I know Tumblr loves to do that. I know they love their little comics that explain, complex ideas to idiots like us. All right. Well, we've got this little guy here, and he's going to represent, an entire group of people. Now, we need something to represent his culture, his heritage. I don't know, a bike. Let's say this bike represents his culture. Look how proud he is of it. Look at him pointing. He is very proud of his culture. Everything would be fine. This lovely neighborhood, this group of people and their culture, everything looks fine. But uh-oh, here comes the white man. Look at him. Look at those beady little eyes. He's up to something, I tell you. Now, at its core, cultural appropriation is theft, at least if you're white. Remember the simple mantra: if they're white, it ain't right to use anything ever made by anybody else, because white people are thieves. Horrible thieves. Look at him. Look at him ride that bike. He took it. He took that culture and he is riding it off. He doesn't care. Look at that little guy. He's so sad. Then that white devil doesn't care a bit about his culture. He's popping a fucking wheelie. And does he feel any remorse? Nope. He just rides off into the sunset. Another white oppressor, part of the patriarchy, riding that culture down the road. He's bunny hopping that culture. He doesn't give a shit. That's not his culture. He doesn't care. It's just entertainment for him. And that, essentially, is what cultural appropriation is. Cultural appropriation is any time a white person takes anything or uses anything from any other group of people. It's very important to understand. Very, very important. Well, with that out of the way, it's time to educate ourselves, shitlords. Let's jump into Tumblr and let's learn about this cultural appropriation thing. And what better way to start us off than a post by Toxic Neblua? Why do white people get so incredibly furious and self-righteous when people of color ask to keep one fucking thing to ourselves? Doing your best to wipe out entire civilizations wasn't enough for you? Dehumanizing and colonizing us for hundreds of years wasn't enough? Continuing to benefit from our oppression, past and present, isn't fucking enough? You still feel like you have the right to every tiny scrap of our cultures that we've tried desperately to keep alive after you spent centuries trying to wipe them out? No, get the fuck out of my face. Hashtags Hina appropriation, cultural appropriation, racism. Well, I feel terrible. What poor culture is this girl from, where she has been so oppressed? Let's take a look. Let's introduce ourselves to Toxic Neblua, manic depressive pixie dream girl, Nausea, 18, poet, vegan, biracial, queer, feminist, gender weird, girthing, sorry, girl thing, and mystical creature. Fey, fear, foe, fars, far self, or day died, day self, she, her, auxiliary. Well, fee, fi, fo, fum here obviously smells the blood of cis scum. Stop oppressing this mystical creature, you fucking horrible white people. I know you've been slaying those giants and griffins, but she is suffering because of it. Don't you appropriate her culture with your Dungeons and Dragons, you evil cis shits. You don't know what it's like to be a mystical creature in this day and age. You can't understand that oppression. Usog is Bun's response to the comment, "I don't think white people with dreads is cultural appropriation." Please stop and actually read up on what dreadlocks are and what they symbolize, and then get back to me. Jacob talks cultural appropriation. Well, Usog is Buns obviously is a wise individual. Let's Let's see how much of an expert this person is. Pills and potions. Jacob, 14. Pan-gender, polysexual. Bun, buns, bunselfs. Pronouns. Well, obviously when a 14-year-old polysexual referring to themselves as buns tells me that dreadlocks are a sacred thing, I gotta listen, because 14-year-olds are renowned for their intellect and insight. But this does raise an interesting thing. When you're going through Tumblr and you're looking at cultural appropriation, you're going to see a lot of posts about dreadlocks. That's a big issue. Lots of people saying, you can't wear dreadlocks unless you're black. I mean, even Usaga's Bun says, go educate yourself. You don't understand the importance and significance of it. Well, since I'm just like them, lazy as all hell, let's pop over to Wikipedia, right? That's the resource of all information in the fucking world. Let's see what Wikipedia has to say about dreadlocks, because I'm sure that fucking place is going to have an article on it. Well, would you look at that? Wikipedia does have an article. And it obviously tells us that only black people have ever worn dreadlocks. I mean, sure, it mentions the Spartans, but Greeks aren't really white. They're obviously African. Neanderthals and Cro-Magnon. All black. In fact, if we look at the Cro-Magnon article, what does it say here? Obviously black's in there somewhere. Wait a minute, what is this? Early European humans. Black people. That's what they meant. Black people. Indigenous Europeans. No such thing exists. 43,000 years. Nope. All black. I mean, white people, would you look at this face? That poor Neanderthal, you're appropriating his culture. Wasn't it enough that your species wiped him out? You wiped out that subspecies, white people. Shouldn't you not appropriate his dreadlocks? That's just terrible, really. What are you doing? Now, of course, usage as buns, he's all about making sure hairstyles stay with the indigenous groups, the culture, the place that it derives from, right? Like that's a big thing to him. In fact, they're really on the game in regards to this. Don't you horrible white girls, don't you take those dreadlocks. We know what you're up to, whitey. But of course, they kind of gloss over just one tiny little thing. Now, let's keep it real. Black girls, we know what your fucking hair looks like naturally. Nobody's addressing weaves up on Tumblr, are they? You don't understand the suffering of my European ancestors when you straighten your hair. Can you hear the weeping? I know it's kind of distant, but all those dead white girls are weeping because you straightened your hair. What are you doing? You horribly culturally appropriating oppressors. I can't even right now. I just can't. Danae Gregory writes, I'm going to be completely honest. If you aren't Native American, and more specifically Sioux, you really aren't able to say that costumes, dances isn't racist. You don't have the right to say something isn't cultural appropriation if it isn't your culture. Dance moms, cultural appropriation. I have to see why this person would put dance moms. I think I had a brain fart. Why is dance moms a hashtag with this? How does that... What? I don't know how those are interrelated, but I'm dying to fucking know. Let's go take a look at Dana Gregory's profile to see if we can parse this out. Yes, all women. A vaguely dance mom's Little Dancer's opinion blog. One time, Kalina Hiker complimented me. This blog is purely my opinion, based on my own experiences as a dancer and choreographer. I'll also probably post about other things. And you can see there in the background, I've cropped it out a little bit, but there's a woman pole dancing. Well, all I have to say to Dana Gregory is, stop appropriating slut culture. Pole dancers have a deep and meaningful heritage. And when you pole dance and you're not a whore, why, you shame them. So unless I can stick dollar bills in your ass, you shouldn't be pole dancing. Or your children shouldn't be. Because that's just weird to begin with. Marxist Feminist Sports writes, what's the difference between white people and yogurt? If you leave yogurt alone for 200 years, it will develop its own cultures.
Bazinga!
Hashtags white people, racism, cultural appropriation, yogurt, lol, keeping this joke. Androgynous Dryad writes, friendly reminder that on point is AAVE. That's African American Vernacular English. And anyone who is not black and says it is participating in racism and cultural appropriation. Hashtags friendly reminder, racism, cultural appropriation, AAVE, I'm white tag. I'm starting to kind of pick up on a common theme. If there was only a way for me to illustrate it for you viewers out there to try to highlight exactly what it is cultural appropriation is code word for on Tumblr. There's got to be a way to do that, but I'm not intelligent enough to figure it out. After all, I'm a white man. I don't have to be smart or think. The patriarchy takes care of all my needs. But maybe if we press on, we'll be able to find out more information and try to pinpoint this, to focus in on it. We are all real mixed up responds to an anonymous comment. I was in the car with my white family and we heard a news story on the radio about a frat party at a school in California called a Fiji Islander party. A student complained about the obvious cultural appropriation. My family couldn't believe this. They were making fun of the student who complained and telling me cultural appropriation doesn't exist in America. They said everyone in America shares a culture. How do I explain cultural appropriation to them without offending them? Thanks. And they respond. So I actually shut down a Jamaican Me Crazy frat party with the help of 2 other officers, Diversity and Equity Office and the Dean of Students Office, at the university that I'm currently work for, and OI. Our administration is super supportive of getting rid of discriminatory based. Last incident of blackface happened this year, ugh. So it was shut down right away. But dealing with a bunch of whiny frat boys over how we are oversensitive and party poopers was awful. It took a code of conduct officer, forced anti-oppression training, and 3 letters of apology to even get them to admit they were wrong. Here are really great articles on cultural appropriation, here and here. Also, check out our cultural appropriation tag. If you have any questions, my personal inbox is open. Samantha. Well, I just love to pursue knowledge. And those links look like they could be helpful. Now that first link, it leads to another website. And, it has articles, but it's mostly essentially what you're going to find on Tumblr. The second link, however, I think this one might really have some fucking insight for all of us. It leads to a Tumblr profile, Swanblood. Let's take a look. Swampinions, Sue, 18, 5'2", Birdie Bird Bird Birdface, aromantic, gray sexual, Japanese cis autistic, pronouns as she and her. Shocking that we keep finding so many autistic people related to these things. Could not be a coincidence at this point. I really don't think. Well, I'm sure they're just inclusive. That's why there are so many autistic people related to this Tumblr stuff. They want to be inclusive. They don't discriminate. They're very proud. Social justice warriors are very proud to admit how autistic they are. I think we should give them a round of applause. I think that's admirable. That's very brave of you, social justice warriors. Thank you for being so inclusive. Ashkenzie Audie responds to an anonymous ask. So I'm a Jewish girl who sings professionally. This means that on Sunday mornings I sing in the choir of a Christian church because I was hired to do so. Anyway, last week the choral director randomly decided to incorporate the Shama into a choral piece. I was totally affronted. First of all, that's some serious cultural appropriation. And secondly, they were pronouncing the Hebrew all wrong. But I can't quit because singing in the choir is my primary source of income. It was awful. And Ashikanzi Adi responds, that is actually kind of terrible. If you want to talk about cultural appropriation in relation to Jewish tradition, you can check out the blog Goynif. How badly were they pronouncing the Hebrew? I can safely assume they are getting the N sound wrong. Hashtags cultural appropriation, Jew, Jewish, and Hebrew. Well, before we go and jump and check out that Goynif blog, let's take a look at Ashikanzi's profile. Let's educate ourselves. Ashikanzi Adi, or Ashira's blog. This is my personal blog. I once had a goy tell me as a side blog. No, I'm not a Zionist. Oh, God. Oh, it's a great flag, man. It's a great flag. Oh, shit. I'm not a Zionist, goy. Calm down. You're aggravating my asthma. Oh, I don't. That's Jewish people, by the way. They're all horribly asthmatic. That's in case you didn't know. I've educated you on Jewish people. Trans Carlos is responding to Arson 3 Cupcakes. For the last fucking time, it is not racist to point out that something can belong to more than one culture. If anything, you're the racist one for assuming someone's race, treating white people like scum when they don't know what they did wrong in the first place, allowing your followers to attack the same someone, and even when they finally caved, you did not apologize for the pose. You simply said that they backed off, and so should everyone else. And Trans Carlos replies, it's racist to appropriate the culture of POC, which is what you are doing. Allow my followers to attack them. I don't control them. I'm not their freaking monarch or anything. I never condone sending hate through, so I don't know what you're talking about. Oh my god, you literally just called me a reversed racist. Oh my god. Hashtags Arson3 Cupcakes, Scientific Inquiries, and Hate Message. Well, let's find out more about Trans Carlos. Icon by Queer-Coded Villain. I track Trans Carlos, Misha, NB, they, them, their, or C cell cells, cell self. Read my before following, intersectional feminist, uppity black princex, autistic, fictional kin, don't use gendered terms on me unless we know each other. Ask me if you need something tagged. And of course we've got our donate button because, hey, blogging on Tumblr is fucking hard work, and they need to make a little money. Obviously to buy the rest of that fucking cutlery set because they've only got 3 out of 5 spoons. So get on that and give them money. Now I'm going to level with you. There is a lot of cultural appropriation talk on Tumblr. Anything and everything you could think of, they're going to bitch about. Halloween costumes? Highly inappropriate. Are you trying to learn another language? Stop it, you horrible white oppressor. Obviously, you just want to reestablish colonialism. Not communicate with other people. No, we know what your nefarious purpose is, and Tumblr isn't going to let you get away with it. So you put down that Spanish book, you horrible cis white het pig. Now, if you think these shit-flinging monkeys are bad enough on their own when it comes to the average everyday user, you haven't seen what they do to a public figure. I'm going to show you a couple examples of this. The first one's Avril Lavigne. Now, you may know her from being a horrible fucking pop star that hasn't written a good song ever. Well, about a month ago, she released a music video, Hello Kitty. Now, for anybody that's older than the age of 9, you may remember this when it was originally called Harajuku Girls by Gwen Stefani. Really original there, Avril. Apparently, Tumblr didn't like this. They saw her as the evil white conqueress going to the land of the rising sun to oppress those poor Japanese people. So I'm going to show you a post of just how they reacted, and you can see how reasonable this is. So allow me to set the stage for you. This is a post by Political Sex Kitten, and it's in reference to Avril Lavigne's music video. Now, Avril was already getting flack over this, and so she tweeted out responses to people saying that she was a horrible racist. Racist, lol lol lol, I love Japanese culture and spend half my time in Japan. I flew to Tokyo to shoot this video. Specifically for my Japanese fans, with my Japanese label, Japanese choreographers, and a Japanese director in Japan. So that was Avril's response to people saying that she was just trying to oppress the Japanese. So how did Political Sex Kitten take it? Well, this is how she took it. So these tweets are actually real? I really like how she tries to defend herself by stating how much she loves Japanese culture. You guys, I did this with Japanese people, so it's cool. I go to Japan just like so much, okay? I know the culture. I know so many Japanese people, even the director was Japanese. God, these bullshit statements alone just insinuate that Japanese people are working with me, so I can't be doing anything wrong or racist. Otherwise, they'd tell me. Yeah, because even if you're an artist at the end of her career and desperately trying to save it, you're still a well-known name, and a POC don't have many opportunities in the industry and will take any job that's offered to them. This includes everyone who worked on this video. Why? Because people of color are easily replaced. They're expendable. Oh, you don't want to work with her just because her entire music video is racist? Whatever, we'll just find another director, choreographer, or dancer. That's it. That's literally it. That's how it works. So we suck up to these people and we work with them because the industry doesn't value us enough, and not working only harms us, not the artist. I mean, spewing random Japanese words that have nothing to do with your song is just short of saying ching chong, long, ting tong. But she's admiring the culture. She does remind me of this skit. There's a link to something else, but I wasn't able to capture it. This is extremely racist and insulting. I'm an Asian American. I studied Japanese for 2 years. I've yet to begin to scratch the surface of Japanese culture and etiquette, and I'm not even the most confident or comfortable speaking or writing it, because I don't feel as if I know enough to say I can speak Japanese. Singing random words in a language you don't know is racist, when you use it for the sake of a song and just appropriate part of a culture so much. Then you have your Japanese backup dancers. They all look the same. They're silent and kawaii. Of course, to you, dear Avril, that doesn't perpetuate the stereotype of cute, obedient, and submissive Asian women. Girls, get it. They're just too damn cute and fit your set. God, you're turning 30. I don't care if you want to act childish and dress a certain way, but grow the fuck up and stop making arguments that defend your racist actions and try to justify them by name dropping everything Japanese. You're not Japanese. You don't know Japanese. You don't know Japanese culture. Your song doesn't honor or flatter Japanese people or Japanese culture. It perpetuates a stereotype the West already holds. And you try to pass it off as them being cute and creative and appreciative and dedicated to your Japanese fans. No, fuck you. Hashtags cultural appropriation, Hello Kitty, Avril Lavigne Hello Kitty, racism, and Avril Lavigne. Political Sex Kitten's had 2 whole years of Japanese. Obviously, she's deeply immersed in the culture and is able to make a value judgment on whether or not you're appropriating it. As an Asian American, not a Japanese person, her perspective is the most important one. I also like how she happened to mention they all look alike. It's very classy. It's very good. All look alike. Can't tell them apart. Where have I heard that before? But let's not get off topic here. I mean, obviously, Avril is a horrible racist. Just because she flew to Japan and worked with an all-Japanese crew doesn't mean anything. She is a horrible person who just wants to mock and deride anything that's Japanese. Now, sure, Political Sex could have taken, 5 minutes and looked into the video production and seen if maybe perhaps the cinematographer or producer, who were both Japanese, by the way, were the ones who picked the art direction. Hell, maybe they were the ones who said, let's have 4 Japanese girls in there that all dress this specific way. But again, Political Sex Kitten, she doesn't have time to do that. That's research. It's easier just to say Avril's a horrible person. Because she's white. After all, anytime a white person uses anything from another culture, it's terrible. It's important to remember we are all separate, but equal, and every group should always stay to themselves and never exchange anything, because that's appropriation. Now, in Avril's case, she didn't apologize. She just simply said, I'm not racist, you people are fucking idiots. And you know what? Good for that. Good on you, Avril Lavigne, for not bending over and taking it up the ass from idiots like Political Sex Kitten. But I'd like you to contrast that with something that happened with Will Wheaton. Now, he made the mistake of apologizing to a social justice warrior, and I want to show you exactly what happens when you do that. So we're at the Will Wheaton Tumblr, and Cosmic Breaker asked, Hi Will, I'm not trying to be antagonizing, you seem to be a rather progressive and really vocal on a lot of social issues. I'm bringing this up because I feel like you take it seriously. Using spirit animal is kind of uncool. Different forms of it belong to specific cultures that are already having a hard time with erasure, partially through appropriation. I've heard suggestions of using patrons or daemon from his Dark Materials trilogy as alternatives. Cheers. Now, Will Wheaton responds, I got a lot of messages like yours that were bordering on antagonizing, but I'll respond to you, this was entirely news to me, and I never meant to be offensive. I'll be honest, I think it's a little much to get upset about this, but I'm fully aware that I'm living on Scalzi's lowest difficulty setting with the celebrity cheat enabled, so I'll own up to the reality up front. My ancestors murdered untold numbers of Native Americans, and I hate that my country was built on their blood. And I hate that the worst poverty in America exists on tribal lands. What I hate the most is how many Americans don't know or care. Those issues, in my opinion, are more important than words. Having said that, I see the point you make. That so much already has been taken from Native people, and when a white guy takes something more, it's uncool. I never meant to take anything from anyone. I think spirit animals are really cool, and I love everything I've learned about Native or Aboriginal culture. I'm not trying to appropriate or lessen anything by expressing how much Kelly Sue inspires me, and how I'd like to be more like her. Now that was the opening to the conversation. And there you are. Will apologizes. He gives a sincere apology. He's not trying to appropriate another culture. He's well aware of the different hardships that Native Americans have faced, and he is sorry. He has apologized. So how does Tumblr respond? Well, let's take a look. This is from K Tempest. It's amazing how problematic this apology is. I don't even think Will gets that he's white-splaining. For the education of those who might find themselves in this situation, here's a primer on what's wrong with this response. First, I got a lot of messages like yours that were bordering on antagonism, but I'll respond to you. I didn't like the tone those other people used. Yours was appropriate. I'll talk to you. Second, I think it's a little much to get upset about this, but this doesn't affect me, and I've never given it 2 seconds worth of thought. And even though I'm about to launch into a whole explanation of how I get it, I need you to know that my first reaction is that everyone is oversensitive. Third, my ancestors murdered untold numbers of Native Americans, and I hate that my country was built on their blood. This outpouring of white guilt somehow brings it all back to me, and how I feel. Curious that. Fourth, I never meant to take anything from anyone. I think spirit animals are really cool. This would be the crux of the problem, sir. Fifth, I'm not trying to appropriate or lessen anything by expressing how much Kelly Sue inspires me and how I like to be more like her. The point is not what you were trying to do, it's how you did it that affects others. Why don't you express your admiration for Kelly Sue in ways that are not inappropriate? Why must you express admiration in this exact way? Also, how fucking hard is it to say, oh, I did not realize that invoking spirit animals like that is a problem, I won't do it again? That's really all you needed to say. You don't need to white-splain or get all defensive at all. Let Will Wheaton serve as an example of what not to do. Trust me on this, y'all. Well, that was a very diplomatic reaction, Kate Tempest. Way to extend a hand of friendship to Will Wheaton after his sincere apology, talking about how he wasn't trying to be culturally appropriative of other things, but he really admired them. Obviously, this is the way that you reach people. Bravo. Now, Will would have been better served if he'd just listened to the captain.
Shut up, Wesley.
But of course he couldn't. He had to apologize, because he is partially a social justice warrior. And so he tried to go out there and be sincere, and they kicked him right in the fucking nuts and spit in his face. That's what happens, Will. That is what happens when you apologize to these feral fucking animals. They don't give a shit. They just want something to bitch at and tear apart, and you were dumb enough to walk into the fucking den. And that is why you never apologize to these people, because it is never good enough. And they will constantly bitch about the littlest thing. And that's pretty much what cultural appropriation is. Bitching about the littlest thing that has no impact on anything else. These people want to live in a world of segregation, where all cultures are completely separate and we have no interaction with one another. Don't wear costumes that reflect another culture. Don't learn another culture's language. Don't eat another culture's food. Don't listen to another culture's music. They are prophets of stagnation. They are preaching a message of death to the world. On the one hand, they preach the tenets of multiculturalism and globalism and tell us how this is an integrated community and that the world is one nation and that, humanity is one people. But their actions don't reflect that. They do not care about a global community or about other cultures. They just want to bitch at you for having an interest in something else, especially if you're white. That is the common theme throughout all of this. If you go and look up cultural appropriation, 10 to 1, I will bet you 10 to 1, more often than not, it is going to have to do with white people, especially if it's a white male and especially if it's a straight white male. They hate them and will constantly bitch about it. That's why when you're looking through cultural appropriation, you rarely ever see anything talking about St. Patrick's Day. You don't see them saying these parades are terrible. There's no movement to get people to stop eating Lucky Charms. Did you know? I'm partially a Mick, and every time you eat those fucking four-leaf clover marshmallows, somebody in my past weeps because they starved and ate potatoes or something. I don't know. I mean, when you eat Lucky Charms, okay, you culturally appropriating pieces of shit, when you eat Lucky Charms, you know what that's like for me? That'd be like if I ate Mammios. How do you like that? How do you like that if I were to eat Mammios? You horrible racist son of a bitch. Now, granted, Mammios would probably not be the most kid-friendly brand.
Mammy, I'm coming. Ah!
But it is full of protein. Now, at the end of the day, really when you look at it, cultural appropriation and the people who believe in it are just fucking boring. What kind of world do they want to live in? It's one devoid of fun, and entertainment, and happiness. Cultures, when they interact, bring things to the table that other cultures don't possess. It's through cooperation and innovation that we create new, interesting things that make the world entertaining and fun to be a part of. Not everything is so fucking super serious. Just because I like your music, or I like your hairstyle, or I like your way of dressing, because I want to mimic it, because I want to emulate it, doesn't mean I'm trying to push you down. It's the highest compliment I can pay you. Now, these social justice warriors, they may want to live in a world that's cold and dead and sterile and devoid of anything that gives warmth and happiness to people. But as for myself, I'd rather live in a world where little Japanese girls front death metal bands, because that's just more fun.
伝説の黒髪を華麗に乱しくるり咲くこの花は